Hello, everyone. This is our project. We made spoons for our game. I'm Akram Benton. We have Bonnie Hyun, we have Melissa Poncini, and we have Lucas Herzog.
So here is a video of all four players playing the game in unison. You can see that each player in the instructions, like the starting screen, each player selects what player number they are, and then each player waits a couple seconds between actually starting the game because MATLAB doesn't really like everything going too fast, even though this is a game about speed. It's just kind of how it turned out in the end. So player one started their game, player one got all their cards, so now player two is going to start their game and get all their cards. All right, player two has all their cards. Now player three starts, gets all their cards. All right, and player four can start and get all their cards. Okay, so instead of playing a full playthrough of the game, which would take a little bit of time, we're just going to show that player one's card will eventually end up in player four's hand. So player one is going to select a card. The 8 of clubs. Then they're going to discard a card, which should end up in player two. Player two should be able to draw that card. Here go the 5 of clubs. Player two can now discard that card. And then player three draws the same card, discarding it to player four, who then draws the 5 of clubs. There you go.
The next part is where we talk about our object-oriented programming, which is basically just all of the functions that went into the code. So when starting the game, the important functions that have to come out are setting all the values, which I generally just had player one do, and handing out the cards. So for handing out the cards, I just had it to be a simple loop that takes a random card from the deck 4 times and just puts it into your hand. And then it erases the cards from the deck. So the cards, so it's as if we drew the cards. And something else that happens when the round begins, depending on what round number it is, or also how many players are alive, we need to have a set number of spoons because the number of spoons is always 1 less than the number of players. So if we have 4 players, we need to have 3 spoons. So when it checks if round number is 0, meaning the game has just started, that we have 4 players, therefore we can write 3 spoons to MATLAB. And then this other last important function is for checking if the win conditions are met. Since all of our cards are in string form, we can just do like an strcmp to check if the characters of the first letter are the same, because that's what represents the card number. The other important functions in the game are the drawing and the discarding function, and they're both very simple. When you draw a card, you draw the first card from the first card in the entire pile of cards, and when you discard a card, you discard to the last slot in that pile. So this ensures that all the cards are going in rotation. When you discard a card, it goes straight to someone else's hand, and then like the cards will stack on, but they'll still have to draw the last card like the first card you discarded. And these 2 if statements right here just check if you have the right amount of cards to draw or discard. So if you have 4 cards, if you have 4 cards, it won't let you discard a card, and if you have 5 cards, it won't let you draw a card. And both of these systems working together basically locks all the players between 4 and 5 cards.
So I'm going to be talking about the GUI. We're going to talk about the player selection code, the start button code, the draw button code, the discard button code, and the spoon code. As you can see, this is just the instruction page, like the start page that most people are going to see when they join the game. It has player selection, it has the start button, it has the reset button, and also instructions just to make sure that everything is very smooth. For the player selection code, we wanted it to be really simple. We wanted it to be quick because Spoons is a game involved, technically supposed to be involved with speed. Obviously, MATLAB doesn't really like that. But it shows that when you click player one, it assigns you player one, and then so on and so forth for all the players as well. And for the start button code, the start button isn't actually used very often. It's just used once at the very beginning of the game. And the one thing that we really wanted to emphasize with the start button code is that when you click the start button, it does change completely the screen that is happening. So obviously in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see that the background, it changes the background, it changes the background image, it changes any of the logos, things like that. It just changes the visibility so that we can switch to the playing screen. And then it also shows the code and how ThinkSpeak is involved as well. For the draw button, this is probably the most used button aside from the discard button, and it's the one that players will interact with the most. It sits at the bottom right-hand corner of the play screen, and you'll see that later on. But if you click it, the first player will obviously be drawing from the shuffled deck, and it will it shows that for player 2, they are drawing from the leftovers of what player 1 had from the shuffle deck as well. And this shows the code and how the card kind of moves its way down the chain of people. The discard button code, we don't actually have a button for it. If you click any of the cards, if you have 5 in your hand, it will discard 1. It only does that if you have 5 in your hand. That obviously relates back to the object OPP. And this kind of just, we wanted to condense the code just a little bit, just because we know that Spoons is supposed to be a fast game. And so we didn't want you to have to click the card and then click a discard button. So we just coded it into the cards themselves. And so if you have 5 in your hand, then it will discard 1 of it. And the code obviously sits right there and explains how we did that. And then this is the end code spoons. You can see in the bottom right hand corner as well, is when you click the spoon and you do have 4 of a kind, it will prompt other players on their screen and show them the spoon button like will turn green, and it will show them that someone has already clicked that button. And if you click it too early, it'll prompt you and say that you don't have 4 of a kind. And if you click it and the spoons have already been taken, it'll say that you lost. But obviously on this screen, we won, and so it says congrats, you won. And there's also a restart button there as well, and then the code shows on the left hand side.
Okay, so I'm gonna be talking about the animation aspect of our code. And so we have animation in just one spot when you are being dealt the cards. And so animation basically is just repositioning the cards in very small increments using a while loop. And so, yeah, so they move at the very beginning. And then we also have code for making them flip over to reveal the cards that are actually in your hand. So again, it's just repositioning in a while loop, but this time it's just changing the width to give the effect of flipping a card over. And then sound, we have a shuffle sound and a spoon clinking sound. So hopefully you can hear that, but shuffle sound happens at the very beginning with that dealing animation, and it just reads, audio reads from a sound file .wav, and same with the spoon, but this happens anytime you click the spoon button, which is how you win the game.
So for the ThinkSpeak, we wrote this function here in the top right. You can see it's basically the data that reads and writes all the data for every single field for our ThinkSpeak, because that's how MATLAB and then ThinkSpeak works in unison. You have to write to all fields at once. And as you can see on the left, we use 7 fields, 1 for the player number, 4 for each discard, 1 for the full deck, and then 1 for determining if someone had grabbed a spoon or not. Down here, we have an example of one of our ThinkSpeak write lines of code and one of our ThinkSpeak read lines of code. And then for our use of tables, almost all of our data in our game was made using strings. So in the left, you can see how each card is identified by a 2-character identification. So the 2 of diamonds is 2D, the 4 of hearts is 4H, the 9 of diamonds would be 9D. So as you can see in our full deck, everything is strung together. And then to read that data, we output it as a table. And then we were able to read each card individually and send it to each player through ThinkSpeak. And that was our project. We are Team Lamb. Thank you for watching.